Hi guys! Today we're gonna continue with the electric vehicles topic and we're gonna talk with our expert Christopher Van Wicken.
Hello.
Christopher went from being buried in student loan, credit card debt, struggling to meet his financial goals, to a consistent six-figure income, all thanks to a self-taught career in car sales. Please tell us about yourself and your experience with electric vehicles.
I work at a car dealership here in Ontario, Canada, and I have a YouTube channel that I film like car reviews, walk arounds, and mostly automotive vehicle information. And I work out of a Nissan dealership, so we do sell a lot of electric cars like the Nissan Leaf. I work for a dealer group, so we also have like Toyota dealerships, Kia dealerships. So I do comparisons of the vehicles on a lot of electric and hybrid vehicles. So I've posted a lot of content on YouTube, and that's where this knowledge has come from.
In your opinion, will electric cars push the traditional vehicles out of the market? Is it our future?
I don't think so. Like maybe not in the near future. I feel there'll always be a demand for the gas petrol vehicles simply for that distance. Right now, like our technology isn't sophisticated enough to do everything that we need for transportation, everything we need for supply chains, distribution. We just don't have the technology for electric vehicles to fill that void. There's always going to be need for the gas. And you know what? Maybe 20, 30 years down the line, that might change. But in the near future, like in a decade, I feel as though there'll still be gas vehicles, petrol vehicles.
What are the most popular EV brands and why do people choose them?
I feel like Tesla is very, very popular, mainly just for the namesake. They've done very well branding themselves as the electric car. They were really kind of one of the first movers in terms of that, creating that brand around electric vehicles. So usually when people think electric cars, that's kind of the first brand that pops into their mind. So for that reason, Teslas are very popular. However, for the price point, there are different manufacturers. I know Hyundai does very, very well. The Nissan Leaf, the one that I sold, was one of the global leaders in electric vehicles. Toyota is more on the hybrid, and then they do a lot of hybrids. But I would say Tesla is number one. We have Hyundai. All the manufacturers are starting to kind of play catch up to Tesla. However, Tesla's kind of in that upper echelon of the pricing. So I feel like Hyundai meets those they meet that kind of smaller price point and less expensive price point. So.
We get many reviews in which consumers share their concern about many car brands going electric. I'm very concerned that Volkswagen may go all electric. That would be a terrible mistake. We can't afford electric cars and we don't have the infrastructure. What do you think about it? Should consumers really be concerned about it?
Yeah, I think it's all it's going to take is maybe one manufacturer to do it. If they do it and that is successful, then maybe the other manufacturers will come along. But it's gonna happen in a very slow period of time. I don't think in like I said, the next 10, 15 years will a car dealership only sell electric cars. There'll always be a need for those petrol vehicles. They might slowly phase out, like similar to like a manual transmission. We slowly see the manual transmissions over time get kind of phased out and become more obsolete. I feel like it's going to go that kind of route where yes, maybe some manufacturers will sell more electric cars than others. Some might be solely electric. Some might not have any electrics. Some might have one of each or a few electric cars. So it will kind of just slowly phase its way out. But I don't think consumers need to be worried if they are in the need for an electric vehicle or they're in the need for a gas vehicle, there's going to be both options for a very, very long time. Worst case scenario, if they really need a gas vehicle and there's none available new, they can purchase a pre-owned vehicle that fits their needs, right?
What is the lifespan of electric car?
So I have to educate people when they decide to purchase a vehicle to really like do their homework on the electric vehicles, and they have to really think long term. Especially lately, a lot of customers have been coming to us and consumers have been coming to us and they want an electric vehicle because the gas prices are through the roof and they don't realize what their life is going to be in the next. You really have to think about it for the next like 10 years because essentially that's going to be how long the car will last. Based similar, it has a lithium ion battery, so similar to like your cell phone. The more you charge your phone, in time the battery doesn't last as long. You buy your phone, the battery might last a full day, 24 hours, and a year later it doesn't last that full 24 hours. 2 years later it doesn't last that full 24 hours. The longer you own the phone, the more the battery deteriorates. And it is similar in like the electric vehicles. The manufacturers have put systems in place to prevent that like battery degrading. However, it's still going to happen. So I would say like a fair estimate is like maybe 120,000 miles. 10 years is like if you get 10 years out of an electric car, if you get 10 years out of any car, I think you've done well. So it all depends also on what kind of climate you're driving it in. If you're here where I live, there's a lot of snow, there's a lot of salt that increases the rust. So it all depends. There's a lot of variables. How you maintain it is obviously a big factor, and how much driving you actually do. So if you could get 10 years in an electric car, I think that's well. In terms of like how long they've lasted, I've seen some like 2012 Nissan Leafs that we've recently sold secondhand, which are now 10 years old. So I think probably I would say like average is probably 8 years, 10 years is good, like 12 years is great, depending on how you maintain the vehicle.
Do electric cars need servicing? Is it more expensive than for traditional car?
It will depend on also like what manufacturer you end up going with. It's just like in with petrol vehicles, maintaining a Mercedes is more expensive than maintaining a Volkswagen or maintaining a Chevrolet, right? The higher end car, the more the maintenance is going to cost, the more your oil changes are going to cost. And it's the same with the electric vehicles. However, you don't need to do a traditional oil change like you would with a petrol vehicle or a petrol engine. You don't need to change the oil change every 3,000 or 8,000 kilometers, 3,000 miles. Mainly with the electric vehicle, you're going to be doing like your tire rotations, your brake servicing, your fluid changes, and that's it. So I would say overall maintenance is less. The biggest issue with an electric vehicle is going to be the deterioration of the battery and how fast that battery is going to degrade over time. Like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, most people think that they can charge their car from 0 to 100, which really you want to keep it in that 20 to 75% range to give the vehicle the most optimal charge and maintain the life of the battery. In terms of the pricing, it is relatively similar for the maintenance costs. Like if you were to get your car maintenance at a dealership, it all depends on the car you have and where you go, right? So obviously like an electric Audi is going to be more maintenance costs than an electric Chevrolet or Ford vehicle.
Going on a journey, is it convenient to drive an EV? How easy has it become to find a charger? And how long does it take to charge an EV?
It's hard for me to touch on that. Like I haven't gone on like a week long road trip in an electric car. I haven't gone on a day long, like a long trip. However, based on what people have told me and the owners that I know who have electric vehicles, it's not as easy as some think. Also, depending on where you're going, if you're traveling up to like a remote cottage, you better hope that you've mapped it all out and you know how to make it on one charge, because as you get further away from urban environments, the charging stations become less frequent and things like that. There's a lot of times where people tell me they had to stop on their route to charge their car. Typically an electric car, like 45 minutes will take you from like 20% to a full charge if you're at a fast charging station. And those can be kind of tough to find. A lot of people, what they'll do is if they're going on a road trip, they'll try to map out their charges and map out their kilometers and take them to how far can they go until they get to a charging station, and then they'll charge their car and then they'll do that again. However, there's always those variables. For example, like at a gas station, a petrol station, people aren't sitting there for 45 minutes pumping gas in their car. It's a 5 minute thing and they're out of there. But if you get to a charging station and there's already people charging their vehicle there, you have to wait for those people to finish, which could be 20 minutes to an hour, depending on when they started. And then you have to wait for your car to charge once you actually get access to the charging station. So that's the variable, is how busy the charging stations are. Where they are is another thing. So it also depends on like where you're traveling to. But in our area where I live, there is a lot of charging stations, and most gas stations or like highway pit stops will have them. It's just with electric cars being more and more popular, when you get there, the chances of them being taken are higher, right? It's not like a gas station where if someone's pumping gas at the pump you want to use, you can just wait for them to pull away and it's a 5 minute thing, right? You have to wait for them to charge their electric vehicle and then you have to charge yours. So it could potentially be an hour or two taken out of your travel time.
What can you say about Tesla? Taking into consideration the high price for Tesla cars, is the price for them worth it?
Certainly, yeah. There's priorities that consumers have. Some consumers want to save money on gas, which is the big thing. Some consumers want to protect the environment and the longevity of our planet. That's why they go for the Teslas. Some consumers see it as like a status symbol, right? Or not a fashion symbol, but a status symbol owning a Tesla. So what do I think about them? I think I've driven a lot of them. I think they drive phenomenal. Like it's a phenomenal car to drive. The technology in the car is very well, like the auto cruise and the self-driving and the sensors and the parking and the integration with your phone. That's a level above what the traditional manufacturers are. And that's what you're paying for with the Tesla, for that higher level of technology and service integration with your phone. The other manufacturers are now playing catch up to those, and I don't want to say inventions, but those breakthroughs that Tesla has made with the technology. And that's what being an electric car offers. In terms of the pricing, yeah, they certainly are high in pricing. Wherever you are, you might get a subsidy from the government. Right now, I think they're paying up to $5,000 here where I am, that you get like a tax rebate from the government. But you have to really calculate like, hey, how much am I spending on gas? I usually tell customers to try to find their break-even point. So if you're going to pay a higher tier for this car, and then calculate how many years it's going to take for you. If you bought the lower priced gas car and put gas in it, did your oil changes, at what year will it take for that Tesla to be cheaper than the gas car? And a lot of people are surprised when they make that calculation. Like it's not in the third year, second year, fourth year. It's usually in the fifth or sixth year. And that's just on like the lower end Teslas. On the higher price ones, obviously, the longer you have it, the more the more you're going to save on that money. And people even trade them in very frequently. So there's a lot of factors, and I do appreciate the people who want to buy the Teslas and protect the environment, and but there's a lot of polarizing information about if is a Tesla better for the environment than a gas car. There's a lot of polarizing information there. Yes, it doesn't have any emissions, but are the batteries recyclable and things like that? So um, I do really love the brand, and I'm glad that there's that option. And if I were to buy an electric vehicle, would I buy a Tesla? I would say no, because I feel like there's cheaper options, electric car options that are out there that I could do without the higher end technology that Tesla offers for paying the price. So
Recently, we've heard a lot about Tesla recalls in the news.
Tesla has recalled more than 320,000 vehicles. A software issue can make the taillights go off at random.
Could you please comment on these recalls?
they're the first movers of a lot. They're the first movers on a lot of technology that goes into these vehicles. And in any market, when you're the first mover, there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be kinks, there's going to be those type of issues. So I get it, and I can see. The one thing I like about the Teslas is how they are easy to service. I know the people in my area, if they have issues, they don't have to bring it to a dealership. Like the mechanics will come to them. You can do live updates over your phone and the Wi-Fi in the car, which is pretty neat. In terms of the recalls, people get scared of the word recall. A lot of times recalls are for the better. Obviously, they're improving the car, and it could depend on where the cars are manufactured too. But a lot of people don't understand that some of the most popular brands, like I'm pretty sure Ford has the most recalls in history, GM has the most recalls in history, and that's what they need to. They need to fully do their research. I think Tesla is just under a bigger microscope. So when they have one recall, it's more elevated than some of the other manufacturers.
And the final question, can you please point out any safety tips that consumers should follow when it comes to owning an EV?
I would recommend, like I just said, like do your research, make sure you understand where you're going to be long term. If you do plan on purchasing a vehicle, do you plan on, is your job stable? Do you plan on working at the same job for 10 years of your life? Do you plan on moving to a different environment or moving to a different city? What is your long-term plan? And that's something that people don't consider when they buy an electric vehicle. Some people buy an electric vehicle and then a year later they get a new job where they have to commute long distances, and then the electric vehicle isn't for them, and then they're selling that vehicle, and they always kind of lose in that situation. In terms of safety, I do feel that they are safe. Just be mindful of your charging, be mindful of where you connect your car to, but just think about the long term, like your long term life. Do you plan on having kids? Because most of them don't have a big back seat. Do you plan on, like I said, do you plan on doing different jobs? Do you plan on doing different activities or different trips and things like that where an electric car might not benefit you? So that's something that consumers really need to consider before they purchase. They also need to consider like what the electrical bill is. Do they have the peak times and off peak times where they can charge their car? Do they have a garage? Because if they don't have a garage, typically they're plugging a cord in outside their house and they have an electric cord running through their driveway or something like that. So there's a lot of factors to consider, which I've listed in a video on my YouTube channel. And I just would recommend that people consider those factors quite a bit. And if you plan on buying a Tesla, make sure you can afford the payments, because the payments are really high. And just make sure like you consider everything before you purchase.
Thank you for the conversation. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel not to miss any new videos.